Today we are at Shape Finding Christianity Today with Mike Breen and Eddie Gibbs, also known as the Velvet Brick, we found out today. So great to have you guys with us. Thanks for being with us today. And I want to just jump into a conversation right off the bat. Going to kind of pick up a little bit from yesterday here at a consultation we're having at Fuller, but our audience will be familiar with the subject. I want to talk a little bit about, first of all, the end of Christendom, which that argument's over.
Yeah.
But one of the questions I wanted to ask you guys was, do you view that as a positive or a negative situation for the church today?
I think it's both. I think the reality is that when the Berlin Wall came down, everybody was free, but a lot of people went hungry. And when the crisis came to Wall Street, it gave us opportunities to look at world finance and banking in a new way, but it's caused a great deal of heartache. When you see the collapse of a system, however quickly or slowly, there's always going to be a negative and a positive kind of effect for that. In terms of mission, which I'm interested in, I think that overall the opportunities are greater than any of the losses that you might have found, because it means that we do mission in a more authentic and real way. We're dealing with the realities not of trying to say, well, should we baptize the babies of Christians, or should we only baptize people who've made an adult commitment? Those are all Christendom questions. Rather than that, we're saying, okay, we're the minority and we have a message to change the world. Let's have a go at it.
Yeah.
Well, I agree with what Mike has said. I think it is both negative and a positive. I think the principal challenge is for the church, which in the West has lived for 1600 years within the Christendom paradigm. And this has impacted the life of the church far more than we realise in a number of ways. Firstly, in terms of our ministry, it's generated a come to us kind of philosophy of ministry. You come to us on our terms, where we are in the majority. Now, in a post-Christendom context, you have to reverse that the church is not just inviting the world to come to us on our turf, but the church is going to the world where it is on its turf. I think the second implication for the church is, under Christendom, most churches were not reproducible. In contrast to the early church movement, where every household church was reproducible. And I think that we need now reproducible churches, not in the terms of cloning, but in terms of reimagining the church, because we don't really know what post-Christendom churches in the West should look like. And
we're still figuring that out.
We are, indeed.
So fluid, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, in the current world economic situation that we find ourselves in, the breakdown of just about everything.
Yes.
Nothing sure. In fact, yesterday, Mike, you were talking about the Hebrews passage of everything that can be shaken, and it really is being shaken.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to force you into giving the prophetic view of it, but in a way, I want you guys to give your prophetic hunch at the very least. What's God doing here in this overall world economics that's shaking everything to His favor or to the kingdom favor? What do you think about?
Well, I mean, there are several things I think that are going on. The obvious thing that's happening, if the seismic metaphor is the right metaphor, and certainly that's a metaphor the Bible's quite happy to use, so I'm comfortable with it. That means that the fault lines that lie below the surface hidden for most of the time are beginning to move. And those fault lines tell us where reality lies in terms of what is really stable and what is really not stable. And so I think that God shaking the nations, as it would be phrased, God shaking everything that can be shaken, really reveals where security can be found. And of course that's a huge opportunity for the gospel. But I also think that it's a necessary deconstruction that's taking place so that we're not dealing with generalities. You know, one of the interesting things for me is that Jesus said to go to every ethnos, to go to every group. Well, a lot of the time, you know, it's difficult to even identify what the groups are. Mm-hmm. When things are shaken, as it were in one of these shakers where it all gets, you go, oh, okay, well, maybe that's a different group that has different cultural needs, and therefore we have to shape the communication of the gospel, which is unchanged, but the communication can then be shaped to that particular culture. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's fascinating that one of the realities of the shaking that's taken place over the last couple of generations and is now increasing and accelerating in its scope and extent is the way in which the subcultures that as yet are unevangelized are being revealed. I seem to remember that there's a prophecy in Isaiah that says the Lord will reveal the nations. Mm. It's almost like he's revealing what the task is in the shaking.
Yeah.
I think that for me, as we look at the uncertainty of the times, that the 21st century is characterized by unpredictable change. Things that you didn't see coming. You know, who saw 9/11 coming? Mm-hmm. How many saw just 18 months ago the economic crisis that we find ourselves in today? Mm-hmm. Now that has huge implications, I think, for the church, because the structures of the church have really been shaped by modernity, predictable change, strategic planning, and all of that. But in the current situation, we've got to abandon strategic planning and think far more in terms of strategic thinking. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't just impact the church, it impacts every institution. Yeah. So that how do we move as a church to say, here's a vision of what the church is going to be. We don't know how to get there. But that's okay. We're called to be obedient a day at a time. And that means flexibility. It means that the church is going to have to move quickly in response to situations that we never envisaged happening. And I think that was the condition that the early church had to face. And it's a great opportunity for the exercise of faith, humility, dependence upon the Lord, rather than an overconfidence in our own know-how.
Yeah, that's good.
What? I've got a question about the emerging church and emergent. You know, this compression of time that we're living in, of just knowledge increasing, and you know, it's so strange how that we can. 5 years ago looks like 30 years ago would have 5 years ago. You know, as far as the compression of time and everything. The emergent or emerging church, a lot of people are like saying, well, that's dead or that's over, whatever. What does the missional church movement owe to the emergent church?